picture of his belly.
Oh, I'm hiding mine up here.
Those Blackhawks are awesome. Okay, good evening, listeners. This is Mulberry Bush and Psychic Medium Tree with another episode of Mulberry Trimmings. Tonight's show, like previous episodes, will have a 1-minute excerpt on YouTube. If anyone is interested in seeing the list of songs, expect it to be found on the YouTube channel under current show tunes. I think a typo there. But anyway, the intro song was actually Elvis Presley's Witchcraft. And we want to remind listeners and followers that you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, as well as Google and Google Calendar under Around the Mulberry Bush, and on Instagram and TikTok as Mulberry Bush 9340. The theme for tonight's show will be witchcraft and magic. We will be taking calls during the last part of the show, so feel free to call in when the lines are open. And we're going to spend like 5 minutes chit-chatting, I guess, for a minute here, and then get on to a couple songs. And then I'll do the presentation after those songs. How's that sound?
All right.
Yeah, so what do you want to talk about? We can talk about anything, really. I think, let me see how many peeps are listening. Me!
Yep. Okay, so I'm not logged in. I thought I was. Okay,
I need to get another picture of that Blackhawk when it comes around, man. That is such a... When it flew right in front of over the river, that was the best. Couldn't get my phone out fast enough.
Okay, got you on. Okay, so are you starting it now? Yeah,
it's recording. We can talk for another... let's see, we're at minute 6. We have 4 more minutes of the 62-minute thing. And I've been looking at, not talk show intros, but a lot of the radio station intros or radio station DJs that became like a TV version of their studio, they have a different way of starting their show than just radio. So I kind of tried to follow a model like that. It's hard to figure it out, to be honest. It's so many and now with this method, I've been listening to different shows and how they do it. One guy, he is just like talk the whole time, and I'm like, dude, man, give me a breather here. So it's hard to say. Yeah, he started getting all philosophical and stuff, and talking about the impact of the force of people that radio could have with the amp and stuff. I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't know about all that.
Okay, so what are we gonna do today?
Well, I have about 12 sentences worth of something that I can talk about. A quick thing on what the word witch and witchcraft mean. But that I can't imagine how the 15 minutes that we have reserved for the topic showtime part will take more than 3 of those 15 minutes. So.
Yeah. All right, that sounds good.
Okay.
Rocky, are you gonna join us today?
No. She's in silent. She's a shadow.
Witches and so forth.
Yeah, I do that every day.
That is true.
I think I'm gonna.
That is true. See, for me, my intent. Do you know Manly P. Hall? Have you ever heard of him, Manly P. Hall? He was an early 1900s lecturer. He wrote a book called The Secret of All Things, and it was this huge compendium of all these different world religions and magic systems and systems of thought and all this other stuff. And he used to talk about that stuff at public events and stuff. So that is kind of where I hope some of this goes with that, like how I'm going to break down this little thing on witchcraft now, and the fact that I'm pulling in a book, and that way and I'm going to try to do this where I show it, and that's the part I'm going to upload on YouTube, I guess.
Cool.
Yeah.
What,
all right.
on yet?
Yeah, we're talking right now on here. So I'm going to go ahead and start the next song. And witches and witchcraft is the theme, but this song is by now if I can get my iPad do this, I'm going to show the book that I'm getting some of my references from. Let's see if I can zip this around. There we go. All right. Well, it's backwards, but it's the Book of English Magic, and I am specifically referencing page 162 right there. I'm going to want to freeze it and read it backwards. And something on page 178 as well. And I'll probably fix that and figure out how to keep that from scrolling around. But there's that. Close the camera. And just set that down. Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and read this. This is what I wrote. Okay, this is 12 sentences that there's 15 minutes worth of airtime for this. So, all right. Witch, wizard, warlock, sorceress, all are words we associate with the type of person, and we say they practice witchcraft. But the original people that were associated with those terms didn't see themselves that way. This is where I'm recommending that book. In a true sense, they were practicing their native religion. In the old Scandinavian belief system, there was one practice called cedar. Cedar shamans were considered weavers and were believed to both tell and shape the future. Traditionally, cedar shamans were women. There were a few males practicing cedar, but tradition holds that Odin and women held the power of the sorceress. During the time of King James I, the term became synonymous with all belief systems that originated in Europe prior to Christianity. Fear of witchcraft was born at the dawn of the King James Version of the Bible in the state of Virginia. At the time, those that believed in their native religion were called pagans and were punished for their sins against Christianity. In the 18th century, Gerald Gardner created a ritual system based on a hodgepodge of Freemasonry, ceremonial magic, and the writings of Aleister Crowley to form the Gardnerian tradition of Wicca. Today, Wicca is considered a religion and is practiced worldwide. The followers perform ceremonies. The followers are referred to as witches, and they practice the ritual of witchcraft. Yeah. The end.
Very nice.
Thank you. Yeah. That's about all I have, though, and we have probably another 14 minutes of the 15. I don't know.
That's great because we got to talk about witches.
Yeah, let's talk about witches.
What they're not.
Yes, that's true. So, there is a lot of misclassification.
Yes. So as psychic medium tree, I'm not a witch.
That's true. No.
And I'm a spiritual medium, which I do. Mediumship, hypnosis, and I also do psychic readings with using tarot cards. I don't cast spells, and I don't put curses on people. So that is typically what witches claim.
Well, okay, so that's true. Yeah, and to the extent that when we say the word witch, I think we're really referring to like ye old English way of talking about a specific kind of thing, like that, like the Wicked Witch of the West, Wizard of Oz kind of thing, like the spell casting flying monkeys and all that crazy stuff,
Mm-hmm.
And even flying brooms and all that. But anyway, at the same time, the original pagan beliefs that were a part of Norse belief system, that satyr was only one of like 3 different types of druids that were there. And some of them did use like more what you would think of as spells, in their way of doing things. And some of them would throw bones down for divination. But it was attaching itself to their deity. So that was more along the same lines as the way the Hebrews would have things along those lines as well. So, but the Hebrews aren't witches. But in a way, the Hebrews could be witches.
But the way that people, yeah, right. But the way that people nowadays, they it's
That's
like
true.
a popular thing. Now
that is true.
For some people
Yeah.
to say, "Oh, I'm a witch," and then to dress emo and then put curses on people,
Right.
things like that. So,
yeah.
Anyways,
there's a lot more. I think when you talk about traditional witchcraft, there's so much more to it than some of the, and Wicca and the Gardner system and all, that's good stuff. It is good stuff.
Well, there's
it's
good
earth-based, this, that, and the other. There's a little bit of everything in there. But
if you read the Wiccan manuscript, there's a lot of good in it, and then there's some weird.
And that's why I'm comfortable saying that that's more of a religion at this point. For them, it's a religion. It's the way that but they refer to themselves as witches, and then they are practicing witchcraft. Yeah. And that's what they do.
Does anybody have anything to add to this? You want to call
Nothing? Anyone? No one?
Talk to us about witches?
Bored. We can't keep the masses happy. All 100% of our listeners are not liking it right now.
So I know that I at one point I did order the book. I read through the whole manuscript, and some of the ceremonies I found to be either purposeless or with bad intent to
the Bible?
Harm. No, the Wiccan, right. But with intent to harm somebody, or
there is a little bit of that goes on. There is imposing will on people. There is that. There is imposing will and things. So there is.
Which is one thing, but bad intent.
And the ultimate rule is something to do with I am the law. There is that. But it has its system. It really does. And Wicca is like part Golden Dawn and part Freemasonry, but so are other religions.
Yeah?
Yeah.
They're a mixed match.
They are. It's a hodgepodge of attempts. But when you say witches and witchcraft, you really are talking about Wicca, and you really are talking about like the old English, Harry Potter style stuff. It's like it's all got to be like written down as a recipe before you cast out the devils or something. There's no real connection in that way.
But we would say during the Salem days.
Yeah, that's true as well.
That
the Salem girls weren't even practicing the old witchcraft.
They were practicing herbology.
Yeah, and voodoo from one of the slave girls. So the slave girls was teaching them the African ways, and then the little townies were all like, "That's not Freemasonry. Hang those girls and burn them at the stake and stuff."
And I have my first trip to Salem coming up.
That's going to be cool.
Can't wait.
It's going to be cool.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to read the history, and and it is interesting also how when women practice herbology, that they were condemned. I wonder if men were practicing herbology, if they would have been called apothecary.
Here's the deal with the Seder, right? Which is the craft of the Vikings. So the craft of the Vikings had different styles. So there was a male druid thing that was considered what you would consider the Viking magic, but when it came to Seder, which was the end-all be-all word for magic for them, that was definitely a woman's craft. And there were men that were Viking witches, but they were kind of poked at and told that, what do you want to be, a shield maiden over here? It didn't work out. They didn't hang out with the guys, if you know what I mean. So, but Odin as well was a bit Seder himself. He was the one male god that had that power to weave and tell the future. Because he's the All-Father. That's how it worked. Back in the Viking days, when everybody had to like survive as like basic hunters with no guns.
Yeah, so the positives I find with the Wiccan is just the herbology. And I could see some spells that, you know, if you create a spell that's in a positive direction to be able to help somebody, even if it's to help somebody disconnect from a relationship that is not good for them.
That's true.
That could be very positive. So
and I have seen some pretty grumpy witchcrafty type people. I've met lots of people that don't get along with people and they're into craft work and stuff, and there's negative energy there. But as long as you don't harm anybody, I think you're okay. It's the whole idea of not harming people that's what makes you a good witch, right? But like any system of religion, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, you know, Taoism, Jainism, all of them, there's assholes.
Oh, yes.
It's as simple as that.
Yep.
There's assholes everywhere. I just like to pick on particular ones because those were the assholes I had to deal with my whole life.
Well, yes.
So take that, Christianity.
So what's interesting though about the book is when I did get the Wiccan book and I read it, you know, cover to cover, and I really didn't vibe with it, so I threw it in the garbage.
Did you?
And the book stated right away that if you ever throw this away, it will find its way back to you.
Did it?
Yeah, it did.
Oh my God! You know what? You know what it says at the beginning of the Quran?
Yeah.
It says if you don't believe this stuff, don't finish reading because they'll have the right to chop your tongue out.
Oh.
So that you don't repeat what you read.
Okay. Well, that's
How's
pretty
that
rough.
for a belief system?
That's a really rough one.
That's what I say too.
You'll have just expect that if you do get the book, then it can throw it away and then it will bounce back to you. So yeah, it was 2 years. 2 years after I threw it away, and that same book showed up.
How interesting.
Yep, the same book showed up in our house. But I don't know. I seriously don't know how it got there.
There's light to be gleaned in it. I've done Wiccan ritual where I did the points of the compass. The thing is, like, okay, like a Wiccan ritual is I stand at the north and then I stand at the south and I stand at the east and all that stuff, and I'm air and I'm earth and all that, right? But Lodge, we don't talk about anything about that, but we do recognize east, south, and west, and we talk about those in regards to the golden rule and stuff, but we don't go into it the way the Wiccans do. So parts were borrowed from other magical systems that were already in place, and Freemasonry isn't magical. Freemasonry is traditional sacred geometry. So that's not magic. That's not witchcraft. Witches are what I just told you they were, whatever it was. Wicca, Gardnerian magic. That's what I say. I'm no witch. I'm a Freemason. I'll be anybody's shield maiden though if they need me to. I will. They were the medics. I was a medic.
That's fun.
Yeah.
So I know that we've gone over to, I won't say where, but a metaphysical type fellowship at a meetup that is supposed to be a channeling session. And what we find is the people in there love to tell other people that they were once witches. So I just found that amusing.
I have run into that before too.
Yes.
I was going to mention that when we were talking about it. I met a girl who insisted that her mother and her both had the same juice.
Which you cannot know if you were a witch in your past life or whatever. And unless you did a past life hypnosis regression, you wouldn't know.
That's
There's not a way for you to really know. But yeah, it's kind of glorified right now.
It is.
A little glorified to call yourself a witch.
I mean, Although to say third generation wouldn't be that long ago.
No.
That would, I mean, my grandmother was born in 1920 something. So if it was a system that was put into place like the Wiccan stuff, that would have already been a 30-year-old system if that was already being practiced. But I think I just saw a dolphin, by the way.
Where?
Or I think it was the tail of a manatee.
Where?
Like to the right, like that ringlet is 20 feet from the pier.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, there's the male witches are called wizards.
Wizards, warlocks.
Yeah. And the females are called witches.
Sorceresses.
Yeah, sorcerers.
Witches.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Yeah, and sometimes they do. Their profession is oftentimes
Enchantresses.
reading tarot cards, but
Sometimes they're called enchantresses because they enchant.
yes,
You never hear of a male enchanter.
Oh,
That's about as gay as you can get. He's
so
enchanting. It's like, yeah, but the enchantress, though, that sounds right. You know.
Now, when were the witch trials in England? When did they?
Well, King James.
Pre-Salem.
Yeah. Oh, by a lot. By a lot. Okay. By even the words Massachusetts. Okay. So the 1607 was Jamestown, Virginia, right? And that was around the time that the book on demonology came out too, which was King James. King James wrote the book on demonology in which he said, witches are devil worshippers.
Yeah.
And then all hell broke loose, and they had people getting their heads cut off and burned at the stake all over the place for like 100 years.
Wow.
2 more kings.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah.
I know
and by that
women
time,
would cheat
Salem,
on their
Massachusetts was a part of that. But American culture, as far as witchcraft, and English culture, as far as witchcraft, pales in comparison, because
oh yeah,
the witches weren't trying to leave the king, nor were the witches trying to leave England. The only people that were the people the witches were picking on. The oppressed Christians.
Right. Well, and if they weren't liked, or if they were cheating on their husband, or if the husband even just accused them of cheating on him, then they could be burned at the stake as a witch, which is terrible.
That is.
Yeah, like they could be accused of anything.
Do you know when the
I'm
last
sure
witch trial happened in England?
No, I don't.
World War II.
What?
I'm not lying to you.
World War II?
Yes.
That late.
Don't freak out, because I know this isn't witchcraft, but the lady was reading tarot cards and she predicted something that was a top secret thing, and the UK went in and tried her as a witch.
And did they convict her?
Yep. Went to jail.
What?
I'm not lying to you.
For how long?
Oh, Scott, 1940s.
Oh my God.
Google last witch trial in England. How preposterous.
Well, that's some crazy
She should have blasted him with a bolt of frustration. You know who came to her defense? 32 Masonic lawyers.
Okay.
The lodge saved the day.
Did they?
Yeah.
Did they get her out?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. She went on to have a normal life and not be burned at the stake. Thank you. There she is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That's incredible. I didn't know
that there was that much, I don't know, fear of her. Like, they didn't want her to leak secrets. They didn't want her to, like, expose something.
Probably.
You know?
Yeah.
I hired her. I'd have been like, go tap into the Thule Society and see what they're up to. And she'd have been like, no, I'm not going into that dark hole of evil. Because Hitler used witchcraft.
Oh, did he?
Mm-hmm. He used Viking witchcraft.
Viking.
Yeah, the Thule Society was based on Norwegian deities. And the SS symbol ruin. See, every time I start talking the dark stuff, the dogs bark. They're like, warning me not to let anything in. Yes. Is it a manatee? It is a dolphin. Let me go ahead and put the last other tune on real quick. That way I can open the lineup. Cool.
Some good color.
Maybe so.
Yep, and my favorite witch was the good witch on the Wizard of Oz.
That is true.
Beautiful.
Glenda.
Oh,
She was awesome, although she killed her cousin.
What?
Yeah. The whole thing with the house and the kid coming in and everything. I'm just saying. Well, she could have given her an out. She could have been like, why did you go to Kansas instead of Dorothy? She likes this place, Go ruin something over there in the other world. That I would know when the 10 minutes went by. So where is the timer? If I do a 10-minute timer and open the phone line, can callers come in at any point in the show? Is that how it works?
Yeah, at any point.
Ah, okay. Well, all right. Well, the timer's going for 10 minutes where I don't have any material, so maybe then I can just make the whole thing. People can call in at any point and just have those 12 things to mention through. Because sometimes I only have 5 things that I was able to find to cram into like something,
It's cool. I was listening to it, you guys' podcast,
Yeah.
See it as a podcast, listening, and it was cool. It was fun.
Was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Rocky.
Yeah. I think.
Are you on air right now?
Yes, we're just chatting it up.
Okay.
There you go, Rocky.
So we're still hoping
you're on the
somebody will
internet,
call
man.
in.
There you go.
Do you have anything to add about witches, Rocky?
I know some of that. I had a friend that did a curse on her ex-boyfriend.
Yeah.
And they burned his clothes and they did all this stuff. And it wasn't the girl who did the curse on her boyfriend, but her friend that performed the curse on her friend's boyfriend.
Yeah.
And it said everything that you do will come back, right? 7-fold.
Oh,
Ooh.
yeah.
And boy, has it.
Has it?
Really?
I thought the rule was 3.
Or 3-fold. I am not a witch, so I don't know. But
Yeah. Okay. Well, either more than one. None is more. One is enough coming back. Yeah.
And the other weird thing is this same friend did a love spell for that friend to help her find a new man. And I drew a picture of a man.
Yeah.
And we used it in a ceremony and sat around with the cauldron, and she had all the different spices and things that you buy that you use.
Yep.
And burning and
Okay.
then lo and behold, she finds the man of her dreams.
Really?
They got married, so
Weird.
Wow.
so who knows?
Well, there is something to be said to some of it. And the ceremony manifesting the future and how to read, it's hard because the ability to talk about the past and then have lived through a period of time and look back at part of what you lived through when it was the future to you and now is the past, you are really saying a lot of the same things to people in how it came about,
Yeah.
In that there are changes in the future that you can kind of see clearly, but you just need to know how to articulate that out the way another person could see it too. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to figure that out. I've heard a lot of historians that say they don't like to talk about the future in general. Because of that. Because they know that they're like, I would like to see this for Jacksonville instead of the future for Jacksonville is, like there's different ways to say how to make the future manifest, especially when you have a sense of the energies at play. I think I'm saying that right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like every future film, movie made about the future, and you look back and you find out, kind of see which ones are really silly and which ones are very accurate, even if they're dystopian.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Even Star Trek, like the old '60s stuff, we're way more advanced than they were.
Yep.
And they're supposed to be 200 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they still had CRT TVs taped to the side of the spaceship so they could talk to the Klingons and stuff. You know, big tube TVs. It's funny.
That's what always the reptilian people that believe in that theory.
Yes.
Their claim is always that the dinosaurs evolved so much that they left no trace because their technology was so advanced.
Is that what they're saying it is now? Yeah, David Icke.
Yep.
So they're not alien, they're just already a subset of already existing beings here on Earth. How do they know how to disguise their skin like that? Shapeshifters?
They're so evolved. They can shape it.
Yeah, well, they might have been here longer than us because of the whole thing with the dinosaurs.
Look at that. Oh, beautiful sunset tonight. Oh. As we're sitting here talking about witches
Or reptilians.
and reptilians.
Yeah, the reptilian
Sometimes
race.
we get a little off track. But
Well, it's
we're back
all
to
of that.
witches, yeah. So
You know-
I've known some people who claimed to be witches, and I will say that the one lady, she was in charge of a housing unit at a university, and she was a very large lady, and she would tell everybody that she would get pregnant and then she would sacrifice her babies. And you know, when I heard that, I wanted nothing to do with the word witch.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem, is that it's so wide a thing.
Yep.
It's so wide that can be defined as witch.
Right.
I mean, technically, I mentioned Manly P. Hart earlier. He was just a guru on all things of that stuff. And he would be defined as a witch because of that, because he knew how to do all of everything. I mean, that man, this was pre-internet, it's mass production of books. This was, genius stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if he had sources that would give him information, but the recordings of him, he would just rattle it off. He didn't have any kind of lecture notes with him or anything. He'd just be talking, Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. But I would say that a witch is intent on her will being manifest into reality. That's what makes somebody a witch.
Yeah.
So you could be a Jewish witch, or you could be a Russian Orthodox of some other whatever witch. You could be whatever. But witchcraft and Wicca is what we think of, and that's mostly looking at like earth-based, looking at the cardinal directions and the 4 base elements from Plato.
And that's my friend's complaint about every movie. I'm like, "Ooh, have you seen this movie?
Yeah.
About the witch? I hated that movie." I'm like, "Why?" She's like, "Because it was a witch within a Christian-based construct." And she's like, "And there is, witches have nothing to do with Christianity.
Yeah.
It's all about what you were just explaining."
Yeah. Well, right. But to an extent, the original root of, the word pagan just meant that was the religion that was already there. So technically, Christianity is a pagan religion here in America because it's the religion that was already here. All those folks are the guys that hiked it over here to start the New World and kill off Native Americans while the witches were all still over there in England. So the word is attached to having more supernatural effect on the world, but religions have ways to define it through their priesthood, but it's still the same effect of, like, saying the rosary and stuff like that for the Catholics is the same as doing Wiccan cleansing ritual.
Wow.
Really, you're just trying to get the bad energies out of you and, obsessively say Hail Mary full of grace and stuff. So,
And the broom, the imagery of the witch on the broom.
yeah.
Now, my friend told me this, that comes from the women in the household. There was a certain type of ointment that they used to make.
Yeah, I know it.
And it would get them very high.
Yeah.
And they would put it on the end of the broomstick and they would insert. So the image of flying on the broomstick is
Yeah.
gets its origins from.
Well, some of the early, if you think about like pre-Roman civilization level shamanism stuff, was very risque in that sense of the word. It was very native.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Native Americans weren't the only natives, I mean, the Europeans acted native as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I believe that it was the juice of the belladonna plant, which belladonna is a red berry that to adults doesn't kill them, but to children it can kill them. But it's about the size of a small grape, and it grows on a vine and all that shit. Let me stop. So yeah, belladonna, and it does cause hallucinations and all that stuff too. If put into your body in excess, it does kill you, but in small dosages, it just causes like a mild hallucination.
And they would use it as a kind of spiritual.
Yeah, catch a buzz while they were dancing around on the stick during a ceremony.
Wow.
I've met witches that associate with older pre-Christianity religions, and the Greeks and the Romans had their systems in place, and for me that bothered me. But there are definitely a lot of very well organized witch organizations that would say that they practice Dianic witchcraft, like women only Dianic witchcraft, right? And I'm like, okay, I can accept that, and that it's just anti-Christian. Obviously, that's fine, but ancient Roman and ancient Greek religions are actually that. They didn't call themselves witches back then. Nobody really did up until like the 1950s with you guys. So it's like, you're not witches. You're practicing an ancient Greek religion, like Freemasons. We're not like, oh yeah, we're really practicing the ritual of, Mithras and stuff from ancient Egypt. No, we're not. We're practicing like a whole new evolved version of such things, and we call it Freemasonry. So it's just different systems for the same thing, Yeah. Yeah.
Like them splitting up the chickens and looking at their internal organs.
Yeah, exactly. That's a lot of Santeria does that. I don't think they're allowed to do it in the States anymore, but they do sacrifice chickens and stuff in their rituals.
And the voodoo people, they boil cats.
Ooh, that's awful.
That is
Isn't that
horrible.
illegal?
I hope Shadow doesn't hear that.
And it's supposed to remove some sort of bone, and it's supposed to help you win at gambling.
Really? Oh, those are some awful things.
Isn't it?
I don't like that they're doing those things.
Oh, the voodoo's bad. Some of it.
Well, here's the deal. Like, voodoo is necromancy because they're saints, they're power beings, they're gods or what have you. They don't call them gods, they call them different titles, but like their power spirit deity is Zamidi, and he was a person at one point, like a saint, and now he's like so sainted and used so much in powerful rituals of voodoo that he's like right there at the edge of being called a god, And it's all based on that. It's based on summoning the spirit of this dead practitioner of voodoo and asking them for help in a lot of risque stuff making zombies. They make zombies. The voodoo people make zombies.
Yep.
Yeah. There was a movie called Serpent in the Rainbow.
I read that book.
Oh, you did? Yeah. It's a heavy read.
The most fascinating thing is that because of the slave culture, they had convinced these people that they were zombies by feeding them the fish. What is that?
Yeah.
Fish?
Right.
He kept all their souls in jars
Yes.
underground and convinced them, and because they're in such a low functioning state, that they believed that they could not escape unless
Well, yeah.
he released their soul, and so the only way was to go and break those jars.
The other tough part, we live in a postmodern world. So you and me can look at it and nothing is real. None of it's real, but all of it could be real if none of it's real, right? So, but we live in a postmodern world. So Nietzsche told us God was dead. So we've been arguing that ever since, But certain cultures, and if you think about a lot of the island cultures, are clueless to that concept. You know what I mean? So for them, the nature of what they feel is real is so much more solid, I think. It's harder to talk somebody out of their belief system and the roots that are there that way, And a lot of cultures, even the Christian cultures, it's hard to say otherwise to a lot of the Christians.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the sad part about the majority of Christians don't really even know what it is they're believing in. So, but just like Wiccans.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. So,
yeah, sorry.
Fun show.
Yeah.
And my phone's almost out of battery.
Mine probably is too.
Charge it. And till
that's
next
cool.
time.
Yeah. All right. And I'll go ahead and do the closing tune.